To create a gradient, the first thing we need to do is select our object. Notice now that our object has a solid fill color, and you can tell that it's a solid fill color first of all by looking at our fill color swatch, and also down below it you can see the first little box has been checked off. In order to create a gradient, let's open up our gradient palette. You can usually find it on the right hand side of the screen. You can click on it to open. I'm actually going to drag it out so we can see it all the time. And this will allow us to make changes to our gradient once we set it. So with our object selected, the first thing we need to do is to click on this middle button just below our color swatches. Doing that will set it to gradient mode, and all a gradient is moving from one color to another. It makes a gradation of the colors, and the computer will do all the processing it needs to change that one color, in this case white, to a second color, in this case black. You can see in our gradient little palette box off to the side we have the different options for different types of gradients. First of all, this type of gradient is known as a linear gradient because it goes in a straight line from one color to another. You can change your type to a radial. You can see a radial that goes from the center point and radiates outward from one color to another. So those are the different types of gradients. For now I'm just going to change it back to a linear. The next thing you can set on the gradient tool is the angle that it's moving in. Right now the angle is set to 0, so it's moving at a 0-degree angle left to right. If I was to change it, say, to a 45-degree angle, you can see now it goes from one corner to another corner. It's moving at a 45-degree angle. So if you ever need to change the direction that your gradient is moving, you type in the angle, and it makes the adjustment from there. Let's change it back to 0. This next part of your gradient palette is known as the gradient slider. This slider allows you to adjust where your colors are going to be located on your gradient, and also allows you to change up the colors itself. So right now you can see it starts with a white and ends with a black. But let's say I wanted the white to start towards the middle of my object. I can click and drag on that swatch and you can see it changes up. You can see this location number changes, and when I let go you can see now that the gradient starts towards the middle and the remainder of it changes into black. Same way works for my black. I can change up where it starts and stops and be able to adjust my gradient color that way. If you want to change a color for your gradient, it's real simple. First thing you need to do is to click on the swatch you want to change. Let's change this white one, so I'm going to click once. With it selected, I go over to my color swatch and I double click on the fill color swatch. Once I've double clicked, I get my color picker, and from here I can choose any color that I want. So let's make it go from a red to there. And now you can see the white swatch has been changed to red. It's going from red to black. You can also do that for your second color. So let's change the black. So I've clicked on it once. If I double click on my fill color, I can choose another color and say OK, and so now it's going from one color to another. And as usual, you can click and change the position of it as well. Additionally, you can add more colors to your gradient swatch. You don't just have to be stuck with 2 colors, you can have as many as you want. If you'll move your mouse in between 2 of the swatches, notice how it changes. Now my mouse is a white pointer with a plus sign. If I was to click anywhere along here just once, it adds a swatch in between those 2. So to change up this color with it selected, I'm going to double click on my fill color, select a new color, and hit OK. And so now I've added 3 colors to my gradient swatch. And of course I can move it around, and I can place on there as many as I need. Create a new one, double click, and change the color. If you want to delete a swatch, it's as simple as clicking on the swatch you want to delete, let's say this one, and there's a trash can icon just to the right of your gradient slider. So if I was to click once, it deletes that swatch and fills in with the rest. If I wanted to delete this first one, I'm going to click on the red, hit the trash can, and it deletes that one as well. You always need to have a minimum of 2 colors on your gradient slider. If you accidentally double click on the swatch, you'll notice you'll get a pop-out window, and from here you can choose some of the colors that are in your swatches palette, some of these pre-made colors. And that's another way of quickly changing colors that you want them to go to, if you have some pre-made swatches. You can also click on this one and adjust the colors as well from there. The final tool to look at for color gradients is actually a gradient tool. If we'll look in our toolbox, there's this one tool that looks like a gradation, and if I click on it and move back to my object, you can see I now have a line going across, and this will allow me to customize and quickly change up my gradients. You can see if I move my mouse over it, I can get my gradient slider, and from here I can work directly on my object to make changes by clicking and dragging the different swatches. Additionally, I can click anywhere on my object and drag, and I can very quickly change the direction, the angle that my color swatch is working with. By clicking and dragging, I can have a starting point and stopping point wherever I need it to be. Let's choose the radial, and you can see how the gradient tool works with the radial by choosing the center point and moving outward. You can see it moves from the center out, and you can also see it on our gradient palette. If I was to click on one of these points on the side, I can actually narrow it up and change out how my round gradient is working. So that's the gradient tool. Remember to have your gradient swatch palette open, and if you want to be able to quickly work with these, the gradient tool, that's located in your toolbox.